They say reality is solid, fixed, unchangeable, that it simply is what it is. But quantum physics whispers another truth, a truth that dissolves everything we thought we knew about control. Reality doesn't happen to you. It happens through you and through the way you observe it. Let me tell you about someone who could easily be you. She was stuck. No matter how hard she tried to shift her life, nothing changed. Same patterns, same emotions, same outcomes. She journaled. She visualized. She begged the universe for a sign. But every morning the same loop greeted her, the same version of reality waiting on repeat. Until one night, in the quiet between thoughts, she stopped trying. She just watched. Not from hope, not from fear, but from presence. And in that stillness something began to dissolve. Not her world, but her relationship to it. She wasn't forcing, fixing, or manifesting anymore. She was simply observing differently. That, right there, is where everything changes. Because most people don't realize this, reality isn't a movie playing on a screen in front of you. It's a quantum field, a living ocean of probabilities waiting for your gaze to choose. Let's bring in the science. In the famous double-slit experiment, scientists found something almost mystical. When particles of light passed through two slits, they behaved like waves. Infinite possibilities spread in every direction. But the moment they were observed, the wave collapsed into matter, into form. Observation changed the outcome. Let from awareness, not assumption. The moment you stop reacting and start witnessing, not from survival but from sovereignty, you unlock the full power of the observer effect. You collapse reality consciously. This is what mystics and physicists have been trying to tell us for decades, that your inner world is not a reflection of your outer circumstances. Your outer world is a reflection of your inner observer. Change how you observe and you change what you attract. Observe through the lens of peace and chaos begins to dissolve. Observe yourself with compassion, and old identities lose their grip. But this requires courage, because observing differently means letting go of being right about your limitations. It means releasing the comfort of familiar pain. It means surrendering the illusion that life is happening to you, and stepping into the responsibility of frequency. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you consistently look at with emotional certainty. So here's your first portal. Begin to notice what you're noticing, then ask, is this observation collapsing the reality I desire or the one I fear? Because in the quantum field, the universe isn't just responding to your actions. It's responding to your attention. If you've ever doubted that your consciousness has power, you haven't yet understood the observer effect. This isn't a spiritual metaphor. It's one of the most staggering discoveries in all of physics, and it has direct implications on every single area of your life. Because once you understand what happens when a particle is observed, you can no longer pretend your attention is neutral. You begin to realize every time you look, you create. Let's return briefly to the double-slit experiment, the cornerstone of quantum weirdness. Scientists fired electrons one by one at a barrier with two slits, expecting them to go through one slit or the other and land on a detection screen in predictable patterns. But when they left the electrons unobserved, something strange happened. The particles behaved like waves, interfering with themselves and creating a pattern that suggested each particle was moving through both slits at once, a phenomenon called superposition. But when a measuring device was placed to observe which slit the electron actually passed through, the interference pattern vanished. Suddenly, the electron acted like a particle, passing through one slit or the other, never both. Observation changed the result. Awareness collapsed the wave into a particle, into matter. This discovery didn't just shock the scientific community, it rewrote our understanding of reality itself. It revealed that particles don't decide what they are until they are measured, until they are observed, until consciousness interacts with them. Without observation, all that exists is potential. But with observation, potential becomes form. And here's where it gets personal. You are not a passive observer of the world. You are a participatory force in the field. You are constantly measuring reality with your attention, and that measurement is shaping what shows up. Now let's step out of the lab and into your everyday life. You wake up. You check your phone. You think about your bank account, your relationship, your health. Maybe you feel tension in your chest, or that familiar knot in your stomach. What you may not realize is that these aren't just reactions to your environment. They are acts of observation. You are observing your life through the emotional memory of the past. And just like in the experiment, your observation is collapsing reality, not into something new, but into something familiar. You're locking in the same patterns, the same frequencies, the same experiences, not because they're unchangeable, but because your observation is unconscious. And here's the key. The observer effect doesn't just apply to subatomic particles. It applies to every thought, every belief, every assumption you carry. You are observing your reality through filters, and those filters have a frequency. They emit signals, and the field, that intelligent, vibrating ocean of probability, responds to those signals with precision. If you observe life through the lens of scarcity, the field collapses into experiences that match scarcity. You might call this proof of how things are. But what if it's not proof at all? What if it's feedback, not punishment, not fate, just coherence? You see, your observation is not a camera. It's a magnet. It pulls from the quantum field the version of reality that matches your vibrational gaze. And that means if you want to change your reality, you don't need to chase more. You need to observe differently. Because there's a version of you who is already abundant, already safe, already loved. That version exists in the field as a probability until you begin to see it. Not just mentally, but emotionally, energetically, with your full presence. The moment you shift your gaze, that reality begins to collapse into form. This is why healing is not about fixing. It's about cleaning the lens, removing the fog of past traumas, inherited beliefs, and outdated identities that color the way you see the world. Because the moment you stop observing from fear and start observing from awareness, you create a new timeline, and you don't need to be a quantum physicist to do it. You just need to ask yourself, what am I seeing? How am I seeing it? What is my energy doing to this moment? Because if everything changes when you look, then how you look matters more than you were ever told. We've been taught to observe reality as fixed, as something out there. But in truth, reality is a living, breathing conversation between you and the field, a dance of energy and awareness. And the more conscious you become of what you're collapsing, the more creative control you gain. You don't need to change the field. You need to change the frequency of your observation. Because that's what reality is waiting for. Not your effort, not your struggle, your awareness. And once that shifts, nothing stays the same. It's easy to think that nothing is changing because the universe isn't listening. But the deeper truth is this. You are collapsing the same timeline over and over again, without knowing it. Not because you want to, but because of how you're observing. Most people live in a constant state of inner repetition, the same emotions, the same assumptions, the same frequency of expectation. They look at their life through the eyes of their past and wonder why the future looks identical. But in the quantum field, nothing repeats unless you're reselecting it, and you reselect it every time you see through the same emotional lens. Here's how it works. Let's say you've experienced abandonment. Somewhere in your past, someone you loved left you, physically, emotionally, or spiritually. Your body remembers. Your nervous system encodes that memory. So now, every time you enter a new relationship, your mind says, I'm open, but your energy is scanning for signs of leaving. You observe your partner's behavior not with neutrality, but with defense, with subtle suspicion. You collapse reality through that suspicion. And soon enough, something happens that confirms your fear. Your ego says, I knew it. But what you experienced was not inevitable. It was observed. It was selected unconsciously by the frequency of your gaze. This is not blame. This is liberation. Because once you see how you've been collapsing your reality, you can stop being a prisoner to it. Let's look at another example. Money. If every time you check your bank account, your stomach tightens and you say, there's never enough. You're not just noticing the number. You're observing with the frequency of lack. And that observation, felt consistently, becomes a magnet for timelines that reflect financial stress. The field isn't punishing you. It's responding to the emotional quality of your gaze. This is why people read all the manifestation books. Do the meditations, repeat the affirmations, and still. Nothing changes, because the quantum field doesn't respond to your words. It responds to your energetic baseline, the dominant vibration you emit when no one is looking, and that vibration is shaped by what you observe, and how you observe it. Now, here's the trap. The more we observe the same reality, the more real it feels. If you observe through the lens of distrust, the field reflects situations that validate your fear, and the more real it feels, the more convinced we are that it can't change. That's how loops are formed. Observation creates reality. Reality reinforces emotion. Emotion strengthens observation. And the cycle continues. So how do you break it? You don't break it by fighting it. You break it by observing differently. Instead of looking at your circumstances with frustration, you learn to look at them with awareness. Instead of reacting, you witness. Instead of repeating, you reframe. Because the most powerful shift isn't in what you're looking at, it's in the frequency from which you look. This is where the real work begins. Not in changing your life, but in changing your lens. You begin to ask new questions. What part of me is observing this moment? Am I seeing through the eyes of my inner child or my embodied self? Is my attention drenched in fear or anchored in possibility? You realize that your external life is just the trailing edge of your internal perception, that the people around you are not showing up randomly. They are mirroring your dominant signal, that your body isn't just responding to conditions, it's reflecting the observer within. And from that place, you begin to shift timelines. Because the moment you stop choosing from the past and start observing from the frequency of your future self, new pathways open. New opportunities appear. Not because they weren't there before, but because your gaze wasn't a match. You are not failing to manifest. You are faithfully collapsing a version of reality that matches your emotional blueprint. And now you're waking up to that pattern. From here, your power multiplies because you're no longer reacting to what is. You're consciously selecting what will be. You're no longer staring at your current results and calling them truth. You're observing from the frequency of what's becoming, and the universe, it's listening to every observation you make, not through judgment, but through resonance. So if you're ready to stop manifesting the same reality, stop looking through the same eyes, change your gaze, clean the lens, and most importantly, choose the version of you who sees through love, trust, and expansion. Because the quantum field is not personal, it's precise. And the moment you change the frequency of your attention, you change the structure of your world. There is a subtle but powerful moment in every awakening, the moment you realize that changing your reality doesn't begin with action. It begins with observation, not with trying harder, but with seeing deeper, and that means learning to see without your old stories, without judgment, without panic, with presence. Because how you see determines what appears right now. Your field, the energetic space around and within you, is filled with waves of potential, endless timelines, endless outcomes all waiting for your attention. But the field doesn't respond to desperation. It doesn't answer to pressure. It opens in response to vibrational precision, to emotional alignment, to the silent strength of presence. And that's where we begin. Find a quiet space. You won't need much, just your body, your breath, and your willingness to observe without armor. Sit down. Let your spine lengthen naturally, as if your whole being is remembering how to rise without tension. Gently close your eyes, not to escape the world, but to shift your awareness inward, where the real observation happens. Place one hand over your heart, the other over your stomach. This is your center of emotional frequency, your core of truth. Now breathe. Inhale slowly through your nose. Hold. Exhale gently through your mouth. Let your shoulders drop. Let your mind loosen its grip. Let the weight you've been carrying, the need to figure it all out, melt into the floor. Now begin to tune into the field around you. You might not see it with your eyes, but your body knows it's there. This space is intelligent, responsive, alive, and it's listening. Now, I want you to bring into your awareness a situation in your life that feels stuck. It might be something you've been trying to manifest, a challenge, a question, a desire that hasn't yet landed in your physical reality. Don't force it. Just let it rise. And as it enters your awareness, notice how you've been looking at it. Not what you've been doing about it, but how you've been observing it. Do you see it with frustration? With fear? With impatience? With doubt? Can you feel the energetic shape of your gaze? Now here's the shift. Take a breath, and imagine observing that situation as if you were already on the other side of it. As if resolution had already arrived. As if the version of you who had moved through it was observing from peace, from love, from trust. Feel what happens in your body. When you do this, your chest might soften, your mind might quiet. Your field begins to respond, because you are no longer observing with resistance. You are observing with alignment. You're not collapsing the old version. You're selecting a new one. And in this space, in this vibration, a different future becomes available. Because the situation didn't change, you changed how you see it. And in quantum terms, that changes everything. Now hold that observation. Don't try to control it. Don't chase an outcome. Just be the observer. Calm, present, certain. Let the field feel your shift. This is where creation begins. Not from effort, but from frequency. Not from trying to make something happen, but from becoming the version of you who no longer needs to force it. The version who already knows. What you observe from trust aligns. Now breathe in deeply one more time. And as you exhale, gently open your eyes, not to return to the same world, but to re-enter it as a new observer. Let this practice become your new default. To pause, to feel, to reframe, to observe through the lens of your next timeline, not your last one, because the greatest upgrade you can make is the quality of your gaze. Comment below, I observe with new eyes. Let that be your declaration to the field. Let the act of writing it become part of the observation, because even in your digital words, your frequency is encoded. You are not just a character in this life. You are the consciousness that's writing it, one observation at a time. So observe wisely. Observe bravely. Observe with love, and let your world reshape itself accordingly. Most people don't realize they're reacting to life more than they're creating it. Their nervous system is stuck in prediction mode, scanning, defending, anticipating. Even when they say they want something new, their frequency is still tied to old reactions. But there is a space, and a subtle and powerful one, where real quantum magic begins. A space where you stop reacting and start witnessing. And it's in that space of non-reactive awareness that timelines begin to bend. Because the field doesn't respond to your drama. It responds to your depth. And depth can't emerge while you're chasing, proving, defending, or fixing. It can only emerge when you become still enough to observe without interference. Let's be clear. This is not about being passive. It's about becoming precise. When you react to a situation, you fuse with it. You collapse into the emotion of the past. You lose your frequency and enter the frequency of the trigger. And the moment that happens, your observation is no longer sovereign. It's survival-based. It's coming from defense, from projection, from urgency. You are no longer observing reality. You are fighting with it. And what you fight, you feed. But when you observe neutrally, not from indifference, but from inner stability, you create a gap. And in that gap, the field recalibrates. Possibilities reopen. You allow energy to reorganize, not by force, but by presence. Non-reactive awareness is not natural for most. It requires unlearning. It requires being okay with not knowing. It requires becoming emotionally fluent enough to feel without collapsing into the feeling. It's the art of saying, I see this. I feel this. But I don't have to become this. And here's what most never tell you. The more you can sit in that stillness, the more powerfully your field begins to shift. Because you're no longer pushing against the current. You're allowing the quantum intelligence of the field to respond, not to your fear, but to your frequency. When a difficult conversation arises and you observe instead of defend, you hold the higher vibration. When money feels tight and you witness the fear without spiraling, you anchor the truth of abundance. When your plans fall apart and you breathe instead of panic, you allow the field to reposition you. This is not spiritual bypassing. This is spiritual mastery. It's choosing your alignment over your ego's reflex. It's staying anchored in your chosen reality, even when your current one tries to pull you back. And the results, they often appear like miracles. But they're not. They're just what happens when the field finally has room to deliver what you've been energetically asking for all along. The power isn't in what you fix. It's in what you allow. The shift isn't in what you chase. It's in what you witness with full presence. Because when you stop collapsing into emotion and start collapsing into awareness, the field takes the cue. It reorganizes to match your new coherence. It stops reflecting the old loops and starts echoing your elevated signal. And that's when manifestation speeds up. Not because you forced it, but because you got out of the way. So next time you feel the pull to react, to control, to explain, pause. Take a breath. Observe the sensation, hold the gaze, and remember this. Stillness is not the absence of power. It is the birthplace of it. You've been told you're a creator, that your thoughts become things, that your energy attracts. And all of it is true, but only when you understand the role of the observer. Because you are not simply here to wish for better. You are here to see differently, to observe consciously, and to architect your reality, not by force, but by frequency. The truth is, your outer world has always been a reflection of your inner lens, not just your beliefs, but your mode of observation. What you stare at with frustration tends to freeze. What you observe with neutrality begins to shift. What you witness with compassion transforms. This is not magic. It's mechanics. Quantum mechanics. The observer effect doesn't respond to your goals. It responds to your gaze. And the quality of that gaze, whether frantic or peaceful, fearful or faithful, reactive or sovereign, determines what crystallizes into your next moment of reality. So, if you truly want to change your life, stop chasing outcomes. Start calibrating your observation. See yourself not as a seeker of answers, but as the consciousness through which answers emerge. See your pain not as proof that something's wrong, but as an invitation to perceive more deeply. See the delays, the detours, the closed doors, not as rejection, but as refinement of your frequency. Because the moment you shift how you look at the world reorganizes itself around your new gaze. This is why timelines collapse when you stop fixing. Why manifestations accelerate when you stop forcing. Why the right people, ideas, and opportunities appear the moment you stop proving and start being. You become the architect of reality the instant you choose how to see, not what to see. And that choice, made again and again, becomes your baseline, your new default frequency. The timeline your body, mind, and field learn to trust. And trust is everything, because the quantum field doesn't reward effort. It responds to coherence, and coherence arises naturally when your observation is anchored in truth, not panic. This is how you step into your next level of reality, not by trying harder, but by becoming still enough to feel the signal, by being the observer that life responds to, not the reactor that life controls. And if you're ready to take that even deeper, we've created something for you. Awaken Your Quantum Power isn't just an eBook. It's a transmission, a vibrational bridge between where you are and the version of you who already lives in harmony with the field. Inside, you'll discover 7 powerful shifts that will forever change how you observe, vibrate, and create. It's for those who are done performing, done waiting, done chasing. It's for those who are ready to observe like an architect and receive like a magnet. You'll find the link in the pinned comment. No push, just presence. If it resonates, it's already meant for you. You didn't come here to survive reality. You came to consciously collapse the one your soul designed long before you forgot. And now, you remember. Now you observe.